Rapidly melting Antarctic ice, it's threatening to dramatically slow down the deep water currents in the world's oceans. According to scientists now, melting ice will have far-reaching consequences. It will affect the spread of fresh water, oxygen and life-sustaining nutrients for centuries to come. Our next report gets you all the details.
Our world is changing, and it is changing for bad. There is a rumble deep within the oceans, which is sending alarming signals that all is not well within our planet. We all know that polar ice caps are melting due to global warming, but now a new report says that the Antarctic ice is melting at a rapid pace. A team of Australian scientists says that it will cause a dramatic slowdown in deep ocean currents. This could have a disastrous effect on the climate. The new modeling shows that overturning circulation of waters in the deepest reaches of the oceans would slow by 40% by 2050. If the model holds true, the deep ocean current will be on a trajectory that looks headed towards collapse. And this is bad news for our planet's health. Trillions of tons of cold, highly salty and oxygen-rich water sink around Antarctica each year, sending a deep water current northwards to the Indian, Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. The greater volumes of melting ice make the Antarctic waters less dense and salty. However, slowing the deep water circulation with consequences for climate, sea level and marine ecosystems. These deep ocean currents in the northern and southern hemispheres have remained stable thousands of years. But that is changing due to an ever-warming climate. And there is only one way to avert this impending catastrophe. The world urgently needs to drastically reduce emissions to get off the high-emission pathway we are currently following.
Now for more on this, we were earlier joined by Laurie Goring, who's a climate change editor at Context. Let's just listen in.
You can think of this pattern that happens in the Atlantic Ocean as a kind of a conveyor belt that is changing, that is moving levels of carbon absorbed from the atmosphere and levels of nutrients around in the ocean, as well as heat. And that's been operating, bringing warm water up in the tropical areas and then having that sink down in the northern areas near Greenland and the Arctic. And that drives a lot of useful things that stabilize our climate, our rainfall, our agriculture, and so on. But that is weakening as these big glaciers in Greenland and places like that melt, because part of what drives this conveyor belt is the saltiness of the water, and more melting fresh water decreases that. So it could impact quite a lot of things that we're worried about, from food harvest, rainfall, to things like how severe tropical storms are. Right now, they absorb a lot of the carbon dioxide emissions that we create from burning coal, gas, and oil. But it's possible that the oceans won't be able to absorb things at the same level if this circulation slows down, which is a big problem because it can accelerate climate change and its impacts. And it's likely, because it affects the evaporation of water off the oceans, it's likely to affect rainfall. And that could change rainfall patterns in a lot of parts of the world, including potentially in India and across South Asia, in Western parts of Africa, and also in South America. This change in the ocean circulation pattern has happened in the history, but in tens and tens of thousands of years ago. So we can see some of the patterns of that. We know that it happens, and we know that when it starts happening, it's possible that it will completely change over within decades, which is why people are worried about it. But we don't know precisely how it's going to affect agriculture and what we're doing now, because we've never had this many people living on the planet when it happened.
And as Europe faces another year of drought and heat waves, French President Emmanuel Macron unveils a water crisis plan for sharing, reusing and saving a historically abundant resource that's grown increasingly scarce in the country as the country nears a drier summer. This was Macron's first major policy announcement in public outing after weeks focused on the pension bill that triggered fierce protests. But what is this plan? Referred to as the sobriety plan, the crisis schedule centers on some 50 measures, including how to reuse water, share water, and also to avoid leaks. It also includes directions for farmers and the nuclear industry on the usage of water.
Ce plan eau, donc avec sa cinquantaine de mesures.
This water plan, which includes around 50 measures, is above all a lasting plan for sobriety and efficiency for water use. I want to set a goal for our country with a goal for 2030 to reduce water usage by 10% in all sectors. This is an unprecedented modernization of our water policy, meaning that we are integrating the connection between the quantities and the evolutions related to climate change. And we are taking into account in this planning, which is ecological, the impacts of climate change.
Qui est écologique, l'enjeu du changement climatique.
Now, as farmers demand large reservoirs to be able to water their crops this summer, environmental groups argue that this will waste water and it's just a way for farmers to confiscate a common good.
For us to be successful in preparing for this summer that is set to be difficult, we all have to go even further. We will put in place by early May an instrument that resembles what we did with EcoWatt with energy, an EcoWatt for water, which will be put in place by the Ecology Ministry and shared to all industry actors. This will allow us to make everyone aware of their responsibilities, since when there are risks of drought and we have difficulties, every action counts.
Now, in some towns, half of the water is lost to water leakages with a nationwide average of 20%. Macron said France is an emergency. As an emergency, will devote at least 180 million euros to fix these leaks and in the most at-risk towns to upgrade networks. Beyond this, other measures such as making water more expensive for basic needs are covered in the country as the country aims to encourage people and businesses to use less.
To accompany
the most vulnerable areas, and this is the third point that I want to emphasize in the short term, in addition to all of these investments, we will mobilize 180 million euros to put the priority on acting within these 2,000 fragile towns for those who are in the most critical situation, as well as for 170 so-called dark zones identified in the country, meaning all areas where there are significant leaks.
Now, further, the French president also plans for a new app that will inform residents if water usage in this area has reached a critical level on the model of the EcoWatt app launched for electricity usage to encourage savings this winter. A dolphin harassment case opens in Hawaii after 33 swimmers are being accused of pursuing, corralling and harassing a pod of dolphins in Honolulu Bay in the state. Hawaii's Division of Conservation and Resources Enforcement released a video and photos taken from a drone which allegedly showed this harassment. According to the State Department of Land and Natural Resources, it is against the federal law to swim within 50 yards of the spinner dolphins in Hawaii's nearshore waters. The prohibition went into effect in 2021 amid concerns that so many tourists were swimming with dolphins and the nocturnal animals were not getting the rest they need during the day to be able to forage for food at night. While investigation into the matter is underway, the aerial footage showed snorkelers following dolphins as they swim away. Now, international policies and guidelines often highlight the divide between nature and heritage in landscape management and the weakness of monodisciplinary approaches. Now, experts argue that historic agricultural practices, they've played a key role in shaping today's landscapes. This has taken a toll on historic landscapes, causing soil erosion, degradation and frequent landslides. That's the kind of situation that occurred in Ecuador's Andean region, where a landslide triggered by heavy rain killed at least 17 people. 23 people were injured, almost 70 are missing. Desperate families used shovels to dig through the mud to search for their missing loved ones.
Y ahorita estoy aquí, quizás que me encuentre siquiera una casa o lo que sea. Estoy cavando a ver para ver si me cojo algo o si no me cojo algo. Si no, ya para vivir vida de ellos, que ya no tengo esperanzas. Que es encontrar el cuerpito de ellos para ver sepultar, nada más.
Now, heavy machinery was used to remove debris and rescue workers searched for survivors in the rubble. Alongside, there was an even more tragic scene. Relatives and neighbors mourn the death of children and adults killed in the landslide.
Toda la mala suerte que ha habido les ha encontrado a mi familia, pero dicen los demás que no, o sea, no tienen a la familia, o sea, todos están debajo de la tierra. Entonces eso les rogaría que les ayuden a buscar y a encontrar a todas las personas para que les den cristiana sepultura.
Now, with fears that more landslides could be triggered, the government has ordered over 600 homes to be evacuated, with 3 shelters set up to care for those affected. Ecuador's disaster agency warned of potential landslide danger for a 600-acre area in February, which included part of the zone where Sunday's landslide hit. Heavy rain destroyed roads, bridges and other infrastructure. President Guillermo Lasso last week declared an emergency in 14 provinces because of the weather. An earthquake had also struck the country on the 18th of March. A new shark in the waters, but this one wants to clean up trash and not prey on fish. In a hope to reduce plastic pollutants from River Thames, a hungry robotic shark now paroles through the middle dock of Canary Wharf to eliminate plastic pollutants from the water body. Our next report gets you all the details.
A robotic shark that can gobble up to 22,700 plastic bottles per day. It has been let loose in London's Docklands. The aim is to remove plastic pollutants from the River Thames and clean up the water. This battery-operated electric catamaran, called Waste Shark, can travel up to 5 kilometers through water before needing a recharge. It can collect up to 500 kilograms of plastic and other pollutants as it guides itself through the water.
Waste Shark is a drone on water, and it's designed to sweep the surface of the water and collect trash, debris, biomass out of the water and return it back to land.
Once the waste is collected, it is then recycled and given a second life as packaging material, bags, furniture, building material and other items. The Thames is United Kingdom's second longest river, stretching about 346 kilometers across southern England. Its tidal section is said to be home to 125 species of fish. But over the years, pollution has become one of the major threats to the wildlife on the Thames. Separate studies have revealed that Thames has some of the highest levels of microplastics compared to any other river in the world. Other types of rubbish found in the Thames include wet wipes, plastic cups, bottle lids and plastic takeaway containers. The robot was deployed ahead of Global Recycling Day on the 18th of March. It will remain in the area's waterways for at least 3 months. During this time, it will also monitor the water quality to identify potential contaminants that can harm the aquatic ecosystem.
While you were sleeping, we could find a robot that could do the job. And through various iterations, the first prototypes were absolutely awful. But to where we are now, we've landed with the Waste Shark and sending that around the world to clean up pollution in the water.
The bot comes equipped with more than 15 different sensors. They can measure temperature, depth, dissolved oxygen, turbidity, blue-green algae, and crude and refined oils. The bot then beams that geotagged and time-stamped information to its accompanying software hub for analysis.
So every one of our waste sharks that are in the water is connected via a 4G and 5G connection and sends back water quality data to our servers. So it's picking up things like turbidity, salinity, temperature, pH balance, depth of the water. All of those things that our clients are looking for, not only on the surface, but want to understand what's in the water below it and how, as they clean, that water is getting more healthier.
WaterShark is the brainchild of Netherlands-based firm WION Marine. Like a self-driving car, the autonomous robot features an onboard lidar that can detect nearby objects using light beams. It weighs 75 kilograms and features 2 electric thrusters to help it maneuver in the water. With a maximum speed of 3 kilometers per hour, it is slower than the whale shark, from which it takes its inspiration from. The bot was designed to provide daily maintenance in smaller waterways that larger waste collection vessels cannot reach. WION Marine says that by comparison, large-scale solutions spend a disproportionate amount of time waiting for large areas of trash chokeholds to develop before they are deployed. This, the company claims, leads to much of the waste sinking to the bottom and becoming irretrievable. The waste shark, meanwhile, can hoover up floating plastics before they become a lingering nuisance.
What Waste Shark does, which is really cool, it does two things. One, it collects plastic waste, but it also collects data, and that data is verifiable. So the challenge of greenwash, I think, gets addressed where we are verifiable in our data from use, and we're verifiable in our data from collection, and we're looking at working with other partners in that space. So verifiable impact is absolutely at the heart of that challenge of greenwash, and we're tackling that head on.
Waste sharks can be purchased for around £20,000 or $24,600, or can also be leased for around £1,000 or $1,232 per month. They could be a suitable line of protection for our rivers.
Now, 4 weeks after a Philippine tanker loaded with 800,000 litres of thick oil sank off the central island of Mindoro, Philippine, fishermen wearing white protective suits, rubber gloves, respirator masks continue to struggle to scrape toxic sludge from the rocks along the shore while the vessel continues to leak. Our next report gets you all the details. Take a look.
4 weeks after a Philippine tanker loaded with 800,000 litres of thick oil sank in the central island of Mindoro, the vessel continues to leak. Authorities have now banned fishing and swimming in the region indefinitely, leaving thousands of fishermen wondering how long they can survive. As more than half of the oil has been discharged and dispersed over hundreds of kilometres of water, experts estimate the two main slicks northwest and southeast of the tanker could span up to 162 square kilometres. Famed for having some of the most diverse marine life in the world, the leaking vessel continues to threaten areas' rich marine biodiversity and livelihoods of locals.
Dahil ang pinagkakakitaan po lahat ng tao dito, puro sa isda, lahat. Yung saging naman po dito, binagyo, wala ding mga bunga lahat. Ang niyog naman po, ano lang, every 2 months. Ang kailangan po dito ng tao, pinansal.
Since the spill, it took 2 days for the oil to reach Bayan na Tubig, a remote village in Pola, which is one of the island's worst affected municipalities. Some villagers got sick after oil smeared the shoreline, turning rocks black and leaving dark globs on the beach.
Baka sir, pag tumagal pa ito, baka yung isang anak patigil muna pag wala namang mapagkunan.
For more than 2 weeks, fishermen have spent 4 hours a day cleaning up oil in exchange for a daily wage of 355 pesos. Which is roughly over $6.50 from the government, which is a little over half of what they used to make from fishing.
Ay wala na po sir Talagang ito lamang po ang alam namin. Hindi naman po kami pwedeng mag-apply ng construction. Hindi kami marunong ang alam ko lang po sa construction yung mag-ano ng semento. Yun lang po.
The fishermen use trowels and sheets of thin absorbent material to clean the rocks. The government estimates at least 5,000 hectares of coral reefs, seaweed and mangroves have been affected. Mangroves can suffocate if oil covers their roots, while corals' breeding grounds for many fish species can die or struggle to grow and reproduce if exposed. An associate professor at the University of the Philippines Marine Science Institute explains that it will take at least 6 months to clean up the spill, but the recovery could be years long. One of the worst spills in the Philippines was in 2006, when a tanker carrying 2 million litres of oil sank off the central island of Guimaras. And since this oil leak, local fishermen hope that it will be contained soon.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.